Hello everyone. We actually had a technical issue. Sorry for the delay caused. Welcome you all to the Adventure Night with Oops. I am Pranati from VCode, CSI chapter VIT-AP. As many of you know that we have completed phase 1 in 100 days of coding challenge in Java. So here is the new phase, that is Oops Adventure is about to start in few minutes. Before starting, I want to tell what VCode is and what is 100 days of coding in Java. In VCode, we dwell into the dynamic world of coding excellence, and it is a powerhouse of innovation with the CSI chapter. Our main philosophy is that beyond the syntax, we believe in coding with purpose, fostering a community where every line of a code tells the story of the progress. And this 100 days of coding is a serious program where we are having 30 days of Java and 30 days of OOPS and 30 days of DSA. The first phase has already been done. This is the second phase where we dwell into sessions today and tomorrow. From February 13th, we are going to start daily challenges and quizzes, along with some exciting Friday nights. So, why to delay this? Let's start. And here is Mike from our side to give his valuable insights this night and make adventures together. And the main thing regarding attendance is that at the end of the meet, there'll be a QR code shared so that whoever is filling the form and stays for the whole meeting for both the days only are eligible for the certificates. Without filling the form, let us not expect any certificates. Thank you. Mayank, you may continue now.
So hello everyone. I am Mayank Chaudhary, a second year BTech student at VIT-AP University. First of all, I want to say sorry for the delay. Like there was some technical issue, Wi-Fi glitches and all. Really sorry for that. So now I will not waste any further time of yours, and let's begin. So as we have come into the second phase, so we have a lot of knowledge about Java, its syntax, and the basic things of coding. Yeah, so all of you have a basic idea about the Java syntax and all. So now we go into the object-oriented concept of Java. So now in object-oriented programming, let's first revise some of the concepts which we have done in phase one, but they're really important for the object-oriented programming thing. So as we know that in Java, every code is in like different functions, and we break it into different functions so that it is easier for us to understand the code and its functionality, and it can be used a lot of times. So the first thing which we have is the constructors. Constructors are special kind of functions which we have in Java, which have the same name as the class name, which we already know. Now we already know that it does not have any return type. It does not have even a return type of void. That means it is a function which has no return type. Then we can have access specifiers, private, public, and all, which we know already what are the functions, but now in OOPS we will understand them, how this creates a thing in different concepts of OOPS, like inheritance, which access specifier should be there. So this all things will be put stressed on in this OOPS sessions as in the upcoming sessions as well. Now we must keep in mind that a constructor is cannot be abstract. Now keep this word in mind. Like in couple of slides after this, we would understand what abstract is. Then I would make you clearly understand. But keep in mind, it cannot be abstract, final, static or synchronized. Like in the previous definition which we had done about constructor, this line might not have been present. But now as we are stepping into the concept of hoops, we must keep these terms in mind because they are really important terms which we are going to understand in the future slides. And then it's not compulsory that we have only one constructor. We can have many constructor present in a code, and that's what is referred to as function overload or constructor overloading. And one more thing about constructor overloading is like in function overloading, we had either parameter list, type of parameters or number of parameters through which we were able to identify which function we are referring to. But in case of constructor, that thing is not possible because we can only have parameters in it, while everything else like the definition and all remains same. We can have parameterized or non-parameterized constructor present. Even if more than one constructor is present, it is always function overloading because we have the same name present always. So now let's go on to the next slide. So now this is an example of how a constructor is. Like we have the name my class is the name of the class, and that is again present in my class. Now keep in mind same name. There is no return type and not even void, and we don't have any access specifier. So when we don't have any access specifier there, then by default the default access specifier would be taken. But that is not the case in case of that is not the case when it is a return type, because return type, if nothing is there, then the word void should be present, but not even void is present. That means it does not have any return type. Now, next thing is like when does a constructor is called or when does the work of a constructor comes in. So whenever we create an object, during object creation, whenever we are creating any object that is the instance of the class, that time your by default the constructor would be called. Like here, this is the class name, this is your object name. This new keyword will allocate space in the main memory, and this is nothing but this is the constructor. Okay, this is not your class, it is not any function. This is always your constructor which is present. Next thing what we have is like here we have example of constructor, like we have this is a non-parameterized constructor. Okay, so and this is a parameterized constructor. Now here what happens is we have here no parameters, we are doing it by our own, and here we are taking the user input, we are initializing that thing, and we are printing the thing. Okay, but if we want to call like if we wanted to have during function overloading, if we wanted to call two functions, we could do it with the same object like obj dot that function name. In that we give the parameters. According to the parameters, it would check which function it is. But in case of constructor overloading, always keep in mind that whenever we want to call a constructor, a object is automatically created. Through one object, we can never call two constructors at a time. And next thing is that what is the difference between a constructor and a Java method? So constructor is usually used to initialize the variables of variables present in your code, and it would not do any mathematical calculation and all generally. While methods are always designed in Java for a particular function or for a particular thing, like palindrome. So that function would do the work of either checking the digit or the number or the alphabet that is palindrome or not, or it might also do the reverse first and then check in the same function. Now, constructors is invoked implicitly and the method is invoked explicitly. Now, let us understand this. As I said in the above slide, that during the constructor call, always an object is created. So, whenever you are creating an object, that required constructor is automatically called. But in case of method, you selectively you can call the required method by using that object dot function name. So you are calling it explicitly, like you want this function to be called now, you are calling it. But in case of constructor, you have created the object, that means it is called implicitly. And like there is also a condition like in Java, like if you have not written any of the constructor, like no parameterized constructor, no non-parameterized constructor, there is a special thing in Java that is referred to as the default constructor. Now, what does it actually do? Now, like if you in a code, you have two parameters, string name and int number. So you have two parameters and you have not drawn any constructor, you have not initialized anything, and then you have created a print function. So if you will print name and your number, you will get the initial values of string, that is null, and in case of digit you will get number, you will get 0. So by default the Java compiler will assign the initial values to the given date given variable according to its data type. And in case of method, it is not provided by the compiler in any case. It is always, if it is not initialized, you will get an error that the variable might not have been initialized. And for constructor, there is a constraint that its name should be same as the class name, but that does not happen in Java method. You can choose any of the name, and it is not the name of the class usually, because if it has a name of the class, then it is usually a constructor. And one more thing is that Java method would have a return type. If it won't return anything, then it would basically have the return type of void. But in case if it is having a data type, then it would have that specified data type like int, double, string, anything. But in case if it is not having any data type, a return type, then it would be a constructor. Okay. And then let's like that's what I made you understand that there are three types of constructor: default, non-argument, and parameterized. In non-argument, we give the data according to our choice. In case of parameterized, it's the user input which we use, and default constructor is a special type of constructor which is being used by the Java compiler when no constructor is defined. Now, for example, if this is a simple code which we have written, my class obj equals to new my class. Now, this is your constructor, this is your object. Now, here there is no constructor. This is what is interpreted by us, like humans. But how will Java compiler interpret this? Java compiler will have the same class, but it will have this extra constructor being declared by itself, which would give the values like if we had some string name or int number, name would be initialized with null and number would be initialized with initial value of 0. So this is how it is interpreted. This extra default constructor is being interpreted by Java, and that is not the case for us like in human interpretation. Uh, that is the same thing which we have is for no parameter constructor and parameterized constructor. Now, if we have a parameterized constructor, like here we have string name and int ID. So now we have this string name and ID present here also. Now understand the use of this keyword clearly. So here we have a keyword named this. So what does this actually does? Now for it, here we had two variables, that is name and ID. Now keep in mind these two variables are global in nature. These variables are global in nature. That means throughout the whole code, they are accessible, they are editable. But in case of the string name and int ID, they are only local variables. That means within the constructor, they are accessible. So within this constructor, they are accessible. And here we have this dot name equals to name. Now, why do we use the word this? Now, this will specify that this instant, like this name, is either the local variable or global variable. For example, if there are two students having the name Shyam in your class, then you have to create a differentiator between the two. Either you can call them by their titles if they are having different titles. If they're having same titles also, then you can call one by their title, one by their name. Or you can call Sham 1, Sham 2 like that. You can call them. But so that is the same way how Java compiler will use whether this name is global or this name is local. So if we write this keyword, this would always refer to the global variable. So this would refer us that okay, this is the name keyword, this is that sham in which we want to enter the value which we have got from our sham 2. And similar way, this dot id, this will keep tell us that okay, this is the id in which we have to enter the value of local variable. So now here if we have like during the uh, main function execution, we have called created an object geek1. In geek1, what we have entered is Adam and 1. So what will happen here is we had string name which is global, and now we had the local variables name and id. So this name will have now Adam and this id will have 1. This id will have 1. Okay, so now this dot name means this container will have the value of this local variable. So this will store Adam and this will store 1. Now as we know that we have printed geek 1 dot name, that uh, object 1 dot name. So uh, here we will have Adam printed and plus we have geek 1 dot id. So here we will have 1 printed. So it is because it was global variable. So any changes made in any part of the code would be reflected back in the other parts of the code. That is what is the importance of global variable. Then same thing we have like here what we have done is instead of calling like parameterized constructor, instead of parameterized constructor, we have written a non-parameterized constructor, but through scanner class being include, we can include the scanner class in the constructor and we can get the uh, inputs directly from the user. And instead of like from calling from the main function inside the non-parameterized constructor, we can have that. And then we can perform the following if else or anything which we have been like asked to perform. Anything. So now, with this, we have come to the another important part like object and class. Now, for object-oriented programming, these are the pillars of object-oriented programming, like data abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, and inheritance. These four things are like the pillars, four pillars of object-oriented programming and in Java also. Like what happens in data abstraction is in data abstraction we are allowed to showcase only the important details without showing the background details. Like for example, if we have the example of a switchboard, then only the essential detail like if we switch on this, the fan would on. If we switch on this, the light would be on. We know only these things, but we don't know what are the connections which have been made in the background or what are the wires significant of, like what are the connections. So we don't need the background details. We have only shown what is required. Same way, a coder will only show the input and output to the output world, outer world. It won't show that what are the logics he has incorporated in its code. So that gives us also a kind of security, and it also gives us from getting like privacy of the thing. The encapsulation is like wrapping up of data and function into a single unit, which help us to concise the code. Like the capsule which we have is it's not made up of single medicine. It is made up of multiple medicines which are added together in some proportion to give us the final capsule. So likewise in a code, instead of writing many things, they are concised all together into a small piece, which makes it like complexity also decreases and it gives us better security as well. Now, polymorphism is like when your single function would behave differently for different situations, like area. Area can be area for triangle, area of square, area of rectangle, area of any polygon. So, area thing, the word is remaining same, but its function is changing every time. And inheritance is like inheriting properties. Like inheritance is like when we inherit properties from one class to another class. Like what happens is like as humans we inherit some properties from our parents. So likewise in our code also we can have different class, the parent class, and then we can have subclasses present, and the subclass would inherit the properties of its parent class. So this would help us to reusability of the code, reusability of the functions, and addition of new properties of one own class can be done. And as we know that object and class are the very fundamental properties of your programming, because objects helps us to call different functions in different time with different values, and class would always be a blueprint of your code. So like if you see example like bulb is a real world object. So this is what is our actually the object. Okay, and then its methods are switched on, switched off. Like these are the functions. Now the like the glass covering filament holder are its member variables. Like they are the variables, or they are the constants of that given thing. And like these are the parameters on which you would be judging that bulb. And then it has features like power it would consume. And then the class is that pattern or description of that bulb, like the bulb itself is the class. So this is how the real world problem also has a class. Then it has an object which has methods to be called and member variable present so as to perform the constraints thing. So like if we have a car, then car itself is a class. Now there it would have some features that will be data members like color, weight, speed and model. They are the data members, and this like start car, this all will going to be the method. And we can create any object like the car model can be our object, and accordingly we can work out. Now, like as we know, whenever we have the word new written or something uh, written, then it allocates space in the main memory. Like for this code, if you see, whenever we are declaring any variable, whenever we are making any like dynamic memory allocation, during that time the memory space is allocated. Like if we declare a integer with 10 value, then in the memory space some space would be there which would store that integer in it. And if we have the dynamic allocation, that means if we use the new keyword when it is no, non-static functions and we are using it in the static functions, then we dynamically create the space. But in this case, as we have created a class object, like my box is a class object, and then we are showing it there. We are calling the show function. So now here we have not used a new keyword, and therefore no space has been allocated in the main memory. That is why we get a like a error. That is why we have to write new my box, which would allocate space in the main memory, and then the further operations can be performed smoothly. So that's what the difference is. Like here, if we are not writing the new keyword, then here no dynamic memory allocation takes place. So there is a error there. But when we are doing new test, your new will allocate space in the main memory, and for sure you won't have any error while you are calling the thing. So these are what the basics of programming, like new function, this keyword, new keyword, and these are the applications of it. We would come to it later if not. Yeah. Now, next thing which we have is the inner class. Like for class, what we have is we have a class name, we have a collection of functions in it, but we can also have a class which is present inside another class, which we refer to as the inner class. Like here we have a class dummy, it would have inner dummy present in it as the inner class, uh, which would have like some parameters on its own. So, so these are the types of inner class which we have is the member inner class, anonymous inner class, local inner class. We will go through it one by one. And One more thing is that we can create a class inside another class, as well as we can create a class inside a interface as well. Interface as well will support a member inner class or any of the type of the inner class. And the another important thing is that the nested class can access all the member functions like data members and methods of the outer class until and unless they are declared as private. Like non-private data members, non-private functions can be accessed by the inner class. Like if we have in the above thing. In the above class diagram, if we had this get name function, and now let me make you understand. Now this plus means this entity, like this get name function is public, and this means this is public, but this minus sign means it is private. Okay, so minus sign will tell us that it is private, while plus sign would mention that it is public. So inside this dummy class, like inner of that dummy class, if you want to access get name function, you can access that. If you want to access set name, you can access that, but you cannot access the name variable because it has been declared private. So here name would not be accessible. Here you can create another name variable that would be local for your inner class. So keep these things in mind that it can be declared inside a class or inside an interface, and it should access only the non-private methods or variables. So it is, so these things I've already covered, like inner interface is also there. Yeah. So here we have here if the name now here what we have is int I equals to 10. Okay. Here we have a class C. It has the inner class B present in it. So this B is the inner class and C is the outer class. Okay. Now int I equals to 10. Now here in the outer part we have initialized I with 10. And now inside this what we have declared another I. Okay. So we have a B which has its I variable, and we have a I variable out as well, that is C. and we can access that variable because it is a non-private, like there is no keyword of private, so it is a non-private variable, so it can be accessed. Now the thing is, how will the compiler understand whether we are referring to the outer I or whether we are referring to the I which is being present here? That is why what we do is we write the class name, like outer class name, dot keyword this, and dot your variable name. So now the compiler would understand that okay, this is like outer I, outer class I is being referred now, and this is the inner I which would like B class I, which would be having the changes in it. And then if we add the word like static class, this inner class has been made static, then it can access the static member of the outer class. Now keep that in mind. Now if you have made, if it is a non-static outer class, inner class, that means it's just the class name without any keyword static, then we can have the non-static as well as the static functions or variables which are non-private can be used. But if the word static has been added outside the class inner class name, then make sure that only the static members like static data variables and static members are added provided that they are non-private. So there comes another constraint that non-private and static can of the outer class can be accessed by the inner class. Like main method is always static, so it can be utilized in the inner class as well. So that is what the main thing is. Like here we have int x equals to 10. Now here this is a non-static, non-private element. Now static int y equals to 30. Okay, so now this is line 2. Now if we have an inner class, like class inner, it is a non-static. So what will happen is we can access x, we can access y through inner class. Like here we can write if we system.println in bracket if we have x, it would print 20. If we write system.out.println y, we will get 30. And if we have the word static written, if we have the word static written, then we cannot access the variable x through it. We cannot, sorry, we cannot access x through it. We can access only y. So if it is non-static, both static and non-static can be accessed. And for static, only static like y can be accessed. Non-static variables or data members and methods cannot be accessed. So like inner class syntax, like we had outer class, we had inner class. And then if we have to create a inner object, then it is inner your this is object name and this is your basic thing. What we do is for creating the uh, object, like here we have class name, object name, and this. So this is for the uh, inner class. We can do it by the normal method. The twist comes in for the outer class. Like for outer class, if we want to create a object of the inner class. Now this is simple. We have created the uh, object that is your outer class object. But if you want to have the inner object, then we have to use the outer class name dot inner class name. Then we have object name. Then we have outer, again the outer class name dot new inner class name constructor. That is the constructor thing. So this is what is there. So outer object should be equals to new outer. This is what we do generally. But when we have to create the object of the inner class, it should be outer the outer class name dot inner class name object name should be equals to again your outer class name dot new inner, that is your inner class name, that is basically your inner constructor. So that becomes like a kind of uh, long statement which you need to write for it. Yeah. So now, in a case of normal or regular inner class without an existing outer class object, there is no chance of existing inner class object. Like we had to create an object because both are non-static. So in normal inner class, we don't have the keyword static. So as we don't have the static keyword, so we always need to have that object creation in Java for us to access the variables or if we need to access the function. Whereas in case of a static nested, without existing of an outer class object, we by chance existing nested class object can be there because both are static. So as both are static, without creating a external class object, we can call the functions as well as the variables. And an inner class object is strongly associated with an outer class object, while the static nested is not strongly associated. The main reason is for inner class object, we have only one constraint, that is non-private variables and all. But in case of static, another variable, another constant is added, that is static. So it becomes a little less associated because we have two constraints while there we have only one constraint. Now in normal inner class, we cannot declare any static members. What is static nested? We can declare a static member including the main function because main function is generally static, we can have static things present in it. While in case of normal inner class, we cannot declare any static members, but we can access the static members of the outer class. So the main thing, again, an important point between static and non-static inner class is that in normal inner class, we cannot run through the command prompt because we don't have the main function defined because the main function is always a static in nature. So we can access the outer class main function, but we cannot declare our own function like main function, so we cannot run it from the command prompt. But in case of static, we can declare static methods inside it. We cannot access non-static methods or variables from the outer class, but we can run like it from the command prompt because we can define the static main function in it. Now, a normal inner class, as I said, can access both static and non-static member of the outer class, but the static nested can access only the static members, which we have already said. Now, another type of inner class is there. Firstly, we have done the first thing, the first two types was under the nested class. Nested class was there. Nested class means class within another class. We had two classes. One was the outer class, another one was a inner class. Inner class, we can have normal inner class or static inner class. The main differentiation is for both non-private variables won't be accessible, but in case of static, we can only access the static thing, while in case of non-static, both can be accessed. While in case of local inner class is like a class within inside a method. Like we have a method and inside that method we have a class defined. So we have a method and inside that we have a class defined. So that is referred to as the local inner class. Now in that what happens is like it is only by the method, like that inner class is in is present inside the method in which it is defined. And so we have only abstract and final modifier allowed, and there is no other access specified for that local inner class declaration, which we'll see in the let me see. And that thing is also there that it can also access every member, like every data member and data variables and members which are not including the private. Okay, here keep this in mind that local inner class can access all members of the outer class, including the private members. So including the private members, it can access all the members present in it. So keep that thing in mind. So like here we have I equals to 10. This is present inside the outer class. Then we have a method present, and then we have a inner class present in it. Now it is a local inner class because it is present inside the method, and then we have the constructor, and then we can print system.println I am a local inner class. So this would get executed when we should create the object within the same function, like void process should have the function defined in it. So here the basic thing which we have of calling the function can be called in after the class definition is over. And another thing which we have is an anonymous inner class. An anonymous inner class is a kind of thing in which the class name is not finalized. A code in which your class name is not present, uh, not finalized, like it can be anything, but we don't know the class name at this present time. So that is what is actually the inner anonymous inner class. Keep that in mind. For anonymous inner class, we cannot have any constructors defined. Now, why we cannot have any constructor defined? Because it does not have any class name. For constructor, the first thing is that it should have the same name as the class name. But no class name is defined. So that means we cannot have that constructor like constructor defined because there is no class name, and allows the creation of one-time use object, like because it is name is not defined, so it one-time use objects are only created. Like for another function, you need to have another object created. And let's understand it into detail like this. Like we have this thing anonymous inherited from the interface. Like test T is equals to new test. Now test can be interface, abstract or concrete class. Like it can be anything. And we have public void test method. So keep this point in mind that it can be either inherited from an interface or from a class. So polymorphism is applicable, but it cannot inherit from more than one class directly. So that is what it is like. We have it can be inherited from interface or a class. So we can have polymorphism in it, but it cannot be more than one class directly because here test T is there. Now here test can be either an interface, it can be an abstract, it can be a concrete class. What is actually it is, we cannot predict that thing. So this is what is actually a anonymous inner class. First, let's understand about access specifiers. Now, we will go to it once again, but let's first complete the access specifier so that things would be more clear to you. So for access specifiers, we have basically four access specifier like private, public, default, and protected. Default is sometimes referred to as friendly also, like when we have no access specifier present, then by default that default access specifier would come into action. Now, what is the use of access specifier? It's help us to restrict the scope, the visibility, or the accessibility of a given variable, class, methods, anything. Like it acts a barricade, like selectively it chooses whether it should be accessible to that resource or not. Like for all the access specifier, we have certain conditions to keep in mind. Like if we have private, okay, so basically the main things which we have is within a class. Like if you have a class named test, so within that same class, all your data type, all your access modifiers or access specifiers would be applicable, be it private, default, protected, or public. All four of them would be accessible to it at any point if it's a global one, and if it has the access specifier for any of those. Within the package, like within the package, like if we have a package name, for example, student, and inside we have the different class of different students, then here if it is private, like private is accessible only within your class. For example, if you are in a class, maybe you have oops you have been assigned to a oops class, okay, so all the students have the accessibility of the all of the class students will have the accessibility to the class notes, so that is why it is private, like it is accessible only to the uh, like things which are present inside the class. Now, within the package, like if you go within the slot, private will not be accessible. It is only restricted to the students who is present inside your class, and not even if it is within your slot, even if it is within VIT-AP. So it is only accessible to the students who is inside the class. While for default, it is accessible to your class as well as it is accessible like to the slot. Like all your slot students would be accessible to the class note of this. Then that becomes default when it's accessible to you and your slot, and it is not accessible like outside the package by subclass, like maybe 22nd year batch it is accessible, and outside the package like other students, so then it is not accessible to other students of that batch, neither it is accessible to the other batch students, so both the cases it does not follow. It is only accessible within the class and within the package. While for protected, it is within the class. Like your class can access the notes. It can be accessed within the package, like within the slot. It can also be accessed by the other students of the 22nd batch. But it cannot be accessed by the students of other batches, like 21st batch, 23rd batch. It is not accessible. So that is what actually protected do. Why? For example, public. For example, any hackathons or something. It is accessible to the students of your class, your slot students, where every batch, and even your batch and outside batch. All of them are included in that. So it becomes a public thing. Like it is accessible to everyone, be it VIT or any other institute, it is accessible to world. That becomes public, and private is like the most secured one, where we have the most confidential things. You will put that in private so that it does not goes out of you. Like when you are creating the question paper, so it should be kept very private. So that time we will use private keyword. While protected is somewhat lenient, but it's like kind of it packs inside your university internal matters. The thing should not go out of your university. Then that is what the use of protected is. And default keeps it intact within a batch or exclusive things of the batch according to the necessity. Okay, I hope this should be clear. Then here we have few examples like this is the package which we have created. Now if we have initialized with variables with uh, like normal values and now we are displaying it. Now here this extends keyword. Keep this in mind, extends keyword is used for inheritance. Whenever you are writing the extend keyword, it is actually inheritance. Okay, we are inheriting the properties of this class into your another class. So this becomes your parent class and this becomes your subclass. Now keep in mind the subclass. The subclass can access the properties of your parent class, but parent class cannot access the properties of the subclass. This inverse is false. And here, like we have this keyword is private, like integer. This one we have made private. This is default. This is protected. So we have covered the three types of access specifier here. Now here, if you print salary plus mobile plus name. Okay. So what did we say within this? Like we are within the same package. Okay, we have not changed the packet yet. Package yet. So for package, what we have is default thing would be accessible, protected thing would be accessible, and public thing would be accessible. Right? Private thing won't be accessible. Okay. So here we have private int packed money. Okay. So now here what is happening? Your salary that is okay. We have public as well. So all the four access specifiers completed. Now salary is default. Now salary is can be accessible inside the same package. Mobile number can be accessed within the same package, and name can be accessed within the same package because they are public. They this one mobile number is protected and name is public and salary is what salary is default. So all three would be accessible within the same package. Now, when we come, like we create a new package, but we are importing the previous package. So here what will happen is outside the package, what will happen? Mobile number that is protected would be accessible and name would be accessible. Okay, and that's what is the like the use case of different access specify like the thing which you want to create like your pack money you want to create it confidential, so you have kept it in private, no one can access it outside this class, while while the things like mobile number and all you did not find it that confidential, so you kind of try to spread it all over like all over the thing. Now, next thing which we have is data abstraction. So as I told you earlier, it denotes the initial essential characteristics which distinguish it from the other kinds of objects. Like it shows only the certain details and it does not show the background details. So like for faculty, the things are employee and ID. Like employee ID is the thing with which we can identify a faculty, and for student it would be the registration number. We need not need any other name or any other things in it. Now for a doctor, like the essential details would be name, age and old medical record, his hobbies or maybe his favorite food or something might not be the concern for a doctor. So it would like it would show only the essential detail. Like in database, we have different columns. That columns will only have the essential details which are required for that particular test case. We do not specify different like all the parameters in it. So find out the essential ones and give it a try. And for a teacher, if you have, then for student details, name, roll number, registration number, and education background. These three things. are important. Like they are the important things for a teacher. His old medical records, his age might not be a concern for a teacher. Like so, selecting the essential details for a particular test case or for according to requirement is what is the data abstraction thing. It helps us to have only the essential details into our picture and not all the details required. So now the work of encapsulation is like when we have a school bag, it has pencil, it has rubber, tiffin box, books, all things included like are bunched into a single school bag. So it keeps all the things intact. So it helps us of wrapping up of everything into a single data, like single thing, and it helps data security because you don't know what are the things present inside it. Like someone might not have, like someone might have a pen also included, some might have a bottle included. So what are the things inside is not showcased. So it helps us to have a better data security as well because it is wrapping up into a single. So we are getting concise thing. Like if we keep things differently, it might take a lot more space. But when we are clubbing it together into a single thing, it is making us accessibility increases and security also increases. So that is what we are hiding the implementation thing. Like what are the implementation levels? What are the things through which it has passed through? It is not showing that thing, as we are exposing only the interface or only the essential details to them. So that is the hide the implementation details from the user. Like what are the things going on in background? As I said, it increases the data hiding and it help us to get more secure things. So that we discussed already. Yeah. So like when we are using the private keyword instead of public, we are making sure that okay, this private data variable or this thing is not accessible by anyone else. It is accessible only within the same class, and so it becomes like it hiding the details from the other things. So that is again adding security to our code. So we must try to use private whenever and whenever necessary so that it as that data security and data hiding concept. That is why when we are accessing any private from outside the class, we have to create an object and we have to use dot display thing. Dot keyword should be there for having the access to this. And in instance, we also have the super dot keyword as well. That keyword. So why like main method is public, static, void, and not anything else. Like we can have private also, we can have non-static method also, and we might have some return type. So we usually give public to the main method because main method is just the calling of the functions and it can be accessed from outside the class. Like it does not have the mechanism. It only shows list of the functions which are there. Inputs may be some for the parameterized function. So it does not have anything like it has only the interface kind of thing included in it. That is why it is always public and static because we need to call like we need to create an object for the calling of the required function or the variable. That is why we make it static because we want that object creation to occur. And void is a return type because main is actually the interface or the execution part. It gets the return values from different functions into it. So it's very rare that you would find that main function is returning something because it gets the return value into it. So that is why it's the key word, like the return type is void. Now the word final. Now the final keyword is added before any variable. Like Before any variable or data type, we add the keyword final because to make that this variable value cannot change in the whole course of the class. Like once we have written final int variable name is equals to 10, even if you make changes in the upcoming lines of the code, the value of that variable will not change. It has been assigned some value and that would remain the same throughout the whole program. Like here we have final int salary equals to 10,000. Okay. Now here we have made a change of salary. Like it is 10,500. A change has been made. A salary change has been made and that has been made to 10,500. But like if we call the object and if we call I dot change the value of salary. Code would be a compile time error because it has been declared as final, so the value of that cannot change. While in case of public class intern, here we have a final in salary and we have entered the value of salary. Now if we show I dot show, the output would be 10 because the value this is what actually this is the final keyword used. It would enter a like a value in it and that value will not be able to change throughout the whole thing. Uh, then uninitialized like static final variable. Now if we have static final int like employee ID and then we have made the employee ID as 1 1 2 1 1 3 1 like that. Now if we had void show, then it would show that employee ID because that had been stored into that final thing. Like final keyword was there, so whatever value is coming into that, it becomes final in it, and that's what has happened. That value got finalized, and that's what it has become. We have got that employee ID as the output. Now, when you are trying, like here, you see you had a final void comment, okay, and you extended like extends intern one. Now, clearly understand this thing, okay. This is a very important thing. Okay, understand this. This is what it is a parent class. Okay, this is what this is your child slash subclass. Please understand this. Okay, this is your parent class. This is your child slash subclass. Okay. Now what is happening? You have designed a void comment which is final in this parent class and you have designed a subclass again a comment like that is you have tried to override. Now if you remove this final keyword for some time, remove this keyword, you have void comment, no error, your parent class function would be overridden by your child class, and in turn trying to access admin command would be coming in. Okay, that is in the normal condition when final keyword is not there. But now let me add the final keyword. So if we have the final keyword written here, okay, this final keyword is mentioned. Now again the same scenario will arise. The child class will try to override the parent class, but in this case it's finalized. It has been made finalized, so you cannot override that function. Neither will the that this function would only get executed. A compile time error would come in because it was unable to access any of the above two things. So now what happens is it added security because it prevents the subclass from overriding the definition of a method. As we have seen in the earlier example, if we have made if we have made a class final or any method final, so then the subclass cannot override the definition of method because it will try to override, but that final keyword stops it from doing it because that has been made the final value of it. And if we have add security because you have made that thing final and no one can have a change into your data variables, like important data variables, you cannot change in it.
So yeah, Mayank, can we stop here for today? Yeah,
So
Mayank,
as
can
it
we
is,
stop it here?
yes, okay, I will just wind up in 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So as we're running out of time, so I would just wind up the final keyword thing, and so we can continue in the next session. As I was saying, that it prevents overriding and it would increase the security because any foreign, if someone gets foreign, person gets like foreign thing comes into your code and he tries to change your certain variable values, but that won't happen because you have declared it final already. So that would add an extra security to your code. So that's all for today. Again, I'm sorry for the delay due to the technical thing. Okay, once I will. Yeah, so all of you please scan this QR as your attendance would be marked based on this and you would get your certificates accordingly. So we don't uh, forget to share this QR code.
Yeah, Mayank, and also, can you please check once Q&A session so that you can answer there?
Yes, Akka. Mm.
Yeah. So meanwhile, as you all have attended the session day, so he have completed some of the major topics, and tomorrow at the same time, like at 9 o'clock, you will be having another session also. So you can join, and right now, just he will show you the QR code. Just scan it and give your attendance, and both these attendance will be counted for your certificate. So try to attend for tomorrow also. Yeah, guys. Mayank, once can you share the QR code there?
Hi.
If you have any internet issues, just take a picture of the QR code and just fill it by tomorrow morning 9 o'clock. After 9 o'clock, the responses will be not considered and also the certificates will be not given in any chance. Okay. Mayank, please show the QR code, Mayank.
Chandrika, I'm showing the QR code only.
Yeah, but it was not here. Once check it again.
Okay, 1 minute. Is it visible now?
Yeah, now it's working. Yeah, guys, you can now scan the QR code. Yeah, and also regarding the recording sessions and PPTs, we'll be sharing you all through your emails and also in your WhatsApp groups. So please be patient till then. Once the session completes, we'll share all the links, okay? And also it will be uploaded in the YouTube handled by CSA VIT-AP. There you can check the recording there. Yeah, those who have scanned and given you attendance, you can leave the session. Thank you everyone for attending.
Okay, Mayank, just you can check the Q&A option, and after that you can wind up the session.
Yeah. So yes, that this session would be uploaded on YouTube. So don't worry about that. And any other question related to session or something? So as no other questions related to the sessions are there, so all maybe